Okay, so now that we've planned our information, tracked our deliverables, and verified the quality, it's time to complete the last and critical step, which is about exporting everything cleanly and managing a proper handover.
From experience, the end of a project can feel chaotic. Everyone rushes to pull together reports, files, models, and certificates, often weeks after the work was actually done.
And because the information wasn't structured properly from the beginning, handover becomes a patchwork of files, last-minute fixes, and lots of reformatting.
Yep, and everyone at that point in time is running to the next project as well. At this point, it's not really a handover, it's survival mode, burning documents, overloaded inboxes, and someone calmly pretending everything's fine when the project's on fire. The result is missed handovers, missed deadlines, unhappy clients, and long closeout periods that drain project profits, and really not a very fun process. Have you had a project trying to close out for many months because there were still things left on the checklist and you couldn't get that information over? It's difficult to keep people's attention right towards the end of a project, that's for sure.
I think this happens so often that probably our industry believes that this is the way how it's supposed to be. This is the right way of closing a project, but I'm pretty sure this, especially looking at this picture, this is not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. Traditional handovers usually involve scrambling to locate the latest versions of documents, manually compiling reports, and trying to retroactively organize deliverables that were never structured.
And worse, teams spend a fortune on effort that could have been avoided with better planning and smarter workflows.
Without early structuring, handover isn't just slow, it's risky, and important certificates, warranties, and asset data can get lost or missed entirely. How often have you seen teams rebuilding asset data after the handover just because it wasn't properly tracked during the project? It can be too often. So managing files in a modern, more proactive way, using a common data environment, a CDE, this is really the possibility. So let's take a look at what the smarter way could be, Louis.
Yeah, one of the biggest gaps we see is how teams manage files. Traditionally, it's hundreds of nested folders with file names that feel like you need a degree in hieroglyphics to decode.
Especially when trying to comply with standards like ISO 19650, it often requires naming conventions so complex that people get it wrong anyway.
That's why a modern common data environment, a CDE, must manage metadata, not just folders and file names. And the metadata should actually drive the file naming. So you can automate from the attributes, not by manually typing them. And then the files should be sorted with dynamic filters, not with static folders that take a lot of manual effort and time and can have a lot of problems and discrepancies. And then this metadata should also drive status changes. So you're not moving files manually between folders. They're actually moving automatically based on an approval workflow. And when a status changes, it simply moves automatically from one filter to another.
Instead of traditional folders, modern systems like Plannerly use dynamic filters. Files are sorted automatically based on their metadata, who created them, what stage they're at, and what discipline they belong to.
And if metadata changes, for example, a model moves from in review to approved, the file can automatically transfer to the right container and even sync with another common data environment.
Yep, this eliminates the human error, saves a huge amount of time, and makes sure that the critical deliverables aren't lost or mislabeled. How many hours do you think could be saved if you're not always renaming to a very detailed naming convention and sorting files manually between folders?
A lot, but I can imagine, a few minutes a day that it saves can add up to a lot of time across the project.
Yeah, I think that the biggest part of using metadata to do all of this is that you don't have to really think about the naming convention and moving files. It's all a byproduct of that process. So if you can focus on just the data, then everything else will sort out itself.
Yeah, and with Plannerly, because everything is connected, your documents, scopes, information requirements, verification statuses, exporting becomes simple and structured.
You can export project records, who approved what and when. You can export section comments, full change histories, scope progress and responsibility reports, verification results, handover packages like COBie spreadsheets, asset lists, and model deliverables.
Yep. And when you're exporting this, you could filter it based on your requirements or your stage, your milestone, the folders that you're wanting to, or a team's work. And when looking at handover data, we are automatically extracting the model values, the values from every element, and being able to see these in an automatically formatted report of all of the assets that have been set up and said, these are important assets for me as an owner. We're then automating that downstream process of collecting the data and exporting it. Instead of spending weeks assembling these reports, manually doing it, you generate them directly from the system, and it saves a massive amount of time and reduces the errors in that workflow. Man, how much faster would it be if it was just literally hitting the export button after obviously following the verification process, but for your model data to get into your asset management system, that would make it a lot quicker, a lot faster.
Definitely. And the key to a clean handover isn't just having reports. It's about delivering the right information in the right format at the right time.
In Planoly, you can package verified models, finalized scopes, signed off documents, and asset information linked to specific building components.
Yep. And because the deliverables are connected to the original information requirements, it's easy to prove that you've met the contractual obligations, which can speed up the payments, as we talked about earlier. If you have everything documented in a way that is agreed upon, and then you are delivering to it, and the automated checking kicks in, you can really quickly get paid for what you've done rather than having to try and prove through disconnected spreadsheets and manual processes. So as we've seen here, wouldn't it be better if we had handover meetings that were actually celebrating successful delivery rather than negotiating about all of the missing documents and all of the missing data that people are trying to search for at the end of the project? Wouldn't it be a better world if it was automated? So let's talk about the value of a structured closeout for a team. What do you see, Akosh?
Well, I can tell you what happens without a structured handover process. So clients lose trust, closeout periods drag on for months, and teams lose profits trying to fix avoidable problems.
Yep. So on the flip side, what we're trying to do is have a structured closeout so that the handover is much more seamless and projects close out faster, and the client receives clear and useful and usable information, everything that they've asked for. Teams can then confidently move on to their next project without all of that stress and hassle and requests coming from that last project they've worked on.
Yeah, it's about closing the loop. Starting structured means finishing structured.
Yep, and that's the ultimate goal of everything we've covered. From the first planning templates to the final handover packages, an integrated, structured, clear way to manage project information is imperative. And that's what we try to make super simple, because
it's better for teams, better for clients, and better for project success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for learning with us throughout this course. We hope that you're excited to put some of these structured workflows into action. We think that these will help as you build better and more connected, integrated workflows on your projects.